The morning air was keenly edged, my coffee lukewarm in a broken cup, as I slammed open my front door to the shock of a voice that might have wakened the dead. Pay this fine or county tow trucks will take your junk off that road. Linda Hargrove, Pine Meadows, AHOA's self-appointed queen, shrieked out, her voice slicing through the silence like a chainsaw. There I stood, half asleep, in my flannel nightgown, standing over my gravel driveway, staring at Linda, who clutched her clipboard as if it were a royal scepter. Just past the rusty gate that marked my property line, she slapped a yelling neon orange document on the bars as if making a royal declaration. Scrawled in a thick marker were the words, "Violation notice, access road encroachment, and a fine of $1,200 for the unthinkable crime of using my own road." I blinked, took a slow sip of my coffee and said, "Linda, I'm not in your HOA." She slid her sunglasses down her nose, flashing a grin like a fox loose in a henhouse. "Oh, Tom, that's the thing. We voted last week. Our territory expanded." I snorted, burning my nose on coffee as I laughed louder than I'd laughed in years. Linda was anticipating me groveling. Instead, I wiped my mouth, rested against the gate and said, "You're trespassing, Linda. And you just entered a fight you can't possibly win." Her smirk twitched, but my mind was already racing to a faded file in my late grandpa's barn, one that would crumble her little empire. Just 3 weeks before, life was as exciting as cold oatmeal. I'd retired from land surveying, bought my slice of rural heaven, and settled into a rhythm of porch coffee, pasture strolls, and fence mending. My sole close neighbor, a surly old trucker named Earl, grunted for the most part, but beyond the hill, past the line into the county, lay Pine Meadows, a cookie-cutter HOA hellhole of vinyl lawns and uniform mailboxes, governed by sorts like Linda, who revered their rulebook as though it were the word. Trouble brewed when my landscapers started using my road for access last year. I gave them a pass, thinking goodwill was my currency. What a mistake. As fast-growing weeds, the HOA's sense of entitlement took hold. They complained about my roosters first. Then they made them ask me to paint my fence with their ubiquitous beige obsession. And now, an outlandish fine for driving on the dirt road my grandpa cleared out in the 60s. Linda asserted the road was community adjacent and under her control by virtue of her new bylaws. I asked if she even knew what adjacent meant. She ignored me, scrawling on her clipboard like a judge counting points. Behind her, two goons in pastel polos struggled with traffic cones, trying to barricade the road. One tripped over a chicken and nearly sprained something, which made me laugh hard. Then Linda spilled the real motive. Some kid's lemonade stand at the curve in the road had flunked. She charged me with mowing hedges too short. Citing it made the walkway uninviting. "You're kidding," I replied in shock. She lectured me on community spirit, children's imaginations, and HOA rules on lemonade commerce. I paid her no mind, went inside and locked the door. She just kept shouting about escalated enforcement while I phoned my sister Sarah. She laughed hysterically before I even got to say a word. "Be at the barn in an hour," she told me. Code for "pack snacks, we're invading." I tore the violation notice off the gate, just plain printer paper with a goofy fake seal. A clip art gavel stamped certified. I wadded it up and handed it over to my goat, who chewed it over like justice was served. Sarah and I sorted through Grandpa Ed's barn by the pale light of a flickering bulb. And there it was, deeds, plat maps, and survey logs that not only showed I owned the road, but a 20-foot easement running along behind Pine Meadows. I wasn't just HOA free, I was the owner of the sole access in and out of their development. Linda had poked a bear, without checking for claws. By sunset, we'd scanned the documents and sent them to Sheriff Daniels with a note. For when Linda comes calling again. The next morning, clumsy hammering outside got my attention. It sounded like someone doing fence work blindfolded. Outside, Linda and her pastel-clad minions had turned my road into a circus. Traffic cones zigzagged like a drunk maze. They'd set up a table with HOA pamphlets spread out and a whiteboard with community checkpoint painted in neon pink. They even built a lemonade stand of wood, yellow painted, with a sign that said, refreshments for HOA families only. A jar on the table said, toll donations welcome. Linda was over there with her hands on her hips, yelling commands, and one of her volunteers dropped flyers that floated into my pasture. She saw me on the porch and flashed a self-conscious wave. I strode down to the gate, boots crunching gravel. What is this, Linda? She smiled like a game show hostess. A community. The next morning, silence lay heavy. Two khaki-clad men stood on my block with a surveying wheel, insisting on double-checking HOA boundary lines. I told them to buzz off or receive a refresher course in trespass law. They fled in a hurry. In the barn, Sarah found a 1963 plat that Grandpa Ed had signed, which marked our road and the easement encircling Pine Meadows back. It meant that we could close off deliveries, charge for utilities, even redirect traffic. Checkmate. We copied the papers and mailed them to Daniels, the county, and the HOA board, with a postscript to Linda. Read this before your next fundraiser. I left it in her mailbox just as I caught her sneaking out of her window. That night, Daniels called to check our rights, in the easement's iron-worded language. He warned me Linda would get only crazier as she lost, and she did. She called a special HOA meeting at the cul-de-sac. Plastic chairs, shrieking speaker, and Linda waving like a windmill. She accused me of a hostile takeover and handed out fake ballots. One of the neighbors demanded proof of road ownership. She slapped. Another demanded to know who actually voted for her. The crowd turned around. That video also leaked. Neighbors started posting, "Not in your HOA, Linda." 2 days later, Linda blocked a FedEx truck. The driver waved a copy of my easement map and drove right on through. Sarah called for a break, but I had an idea. A toll booth. Not to collect money, to stand on principle. Before dawn, I built one. Sarah and I posted a sign, toll road, private access, no HOA jurisdiction, $50 per vehicle, cash only. I locked the gate, wrapped it in orange chain, and parked my truck beside it. At 10:30, an SUV driver paid without protest. By noon, I'd made $300. One man demanded proof. I showed him the plat. He paid. Then Linda came speeding up in her Lexus, stormed the gate. "Block our road," she yelled, holding on to the sign. I taped her, warning that she was trespassing. She stepped back, entreating. Talking about jobs, children, I reminded her, your HOA built all of this without asking permission. That's not my problem. Sarah gave me a "Not in your HOA, Linda" t-shirt. A board member snickered. We should have listened. Daniels came back again, reestablished my rights, and told her to back away. Linda deflated. I allowed good neighbors and delivery men through for nothing. Donated toll funds to scholarships at the local farms. Word spread around. A blogger blogged it. Linda's meltdown videos went viral. The mayor's aide invited me to give a speech at a property rights seminar. I did not. Later, Linda finally quit driving down the road. She tried zoning for a back door and bumped up against wall after wall. Her HOA presidency collapsed. A new president, Diane, was installed weeks later. But Linda wasn't done. She set up another meeting, selling bogus ballots and threats of a lawsuit. I got a fake notice in the mail. Sarah and I called our lawyer, Howard. He petitioned for harassment and an injunction. In court, Linda's potential consultant wasn't even licensed. Her entire case, pamphlets in fits. The judge ruled in our favor. Injunction granted. The HOA apologized and admitted Linda had never even been formally voted in. Diane asked for restricted use of the road. I agreed on the condition they recognize my land sovereignty. Afternoon, Daniels dropped off a letter in USB. Linda had stuck an apology. Recognized I owned the road. Recognized she'd gone too far. And she quit. Sarah smirked, thinking it was exhaustion, court pressure, or embarrassment. Likely all three. Neighbors delivered pies. Children sent thank you cards for letting them bike the road. I replaced the toll sign with one that read, "Entry by permission, respect private property." Sarah sold "Not in your HOA, Linda" merchandise. It was a local phenomenon. Linda quietly gardened, avoiding my street. The gate stayed open most days as neighbors cordially waved. One spring morning, Sarah brought a county letter confirming, finally, that the street belonged to me. We joked about locking it in a time capsule. I stood outside the gate, sun setting over the hills, recalling Grandpa Ed. This road wasn't technically mine. It was proof. Proof that when one goes too far over the line, standing up rings out louder than yelling ever possibly can.